Welcome back and thank you so much for watching Smart 24 TV. Remember, we are live on our YouTube channel, that is a Smart 24 TV, but you can also catch us live on GOTV channel 394 and DSTV channel 372. My name is Anthony and this is The Point. Today we are talking the current state of the economy and of course the way forward, and with Mr. Apollo Muginda, who is the Head of Communications at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Now, Mr. Apollo, we want to get into the budgeting process. First of all, I understand our viewers here would want to know what the budgeting process looks like before we even get into the prioritization for this year and comparing it with last year. Because I realized as an individual in business or even students, anyone out there should be interested in the national budget. But what is the process like from designing the framework to getting it to Parliament, to getting it approved? Why the rigorous steps, and what are those steps actually that are taken before we have the national budget on table?
Okay, thank you, Anthony. First of all, I want to briefly tell you that the theme of the budget for last financial year is the theme we are maintaining this coming financial year, 23-24. Full monetization of the Ugandan economy through commercial, agriculture, industrialization, broadening and expanding services, digital transformation, and market access. So these are when you break it down, this is where government has been focusing this current year. Of course, in addition to things that must be done. For instance, you must pay salaries and wages and gratuity and all those things. We have statutory payments you have to do, Parliament, the judiciary, all those things. So if you break down this thing, whatever government has been focusing on is within this. Industrialization, I talked about it. You see how we're focusing into import substitution. You now see we are putting a lot of emphasis on industrial parks. And this is where we are going to put more focus, even in the coming financial. Agriculture, we are going to put a lot of emphasis on agriculture. And the services, of course. When you talk about the services, the services in education, these are must do's for the country, for the economy. So this coming year, these are areas. Before I expound on them, I want to take you through the budgeting process. The budget is people who work in the Ministry of Finance don't have a break. It's a continuous process almost.
You don't even break off for Christmas.
It is because when the financial ends, in June, the process begins
immediately
with consultations around August, September. You see, consulting all stakeholders. I think you've been here in the Ministry of Finance going across the country, meeting all stakeholders at the center, local governments, all people, always investors, private sector, and that's all of them we do consult. Because we want to pick ideas from them. What do they want to see in their budget? Because this is their budget. And around September, the ministry issues what they call the first budget call circular, which goes out to all accounting officers. This is really to give them an outline, a frame of how things are going to look like in the coming financial year. So, and of course, there are also a number of guidelines that they should look forward to implementing in the coming financial year. And then we go into now the process of what you've been seeing now, the budgetary preparing the budget framework papers. You've been seeing all sectors getting down to work. You've been seeing this discussion in Parliament. Now, the difference, what's happening this time around, is that we've moved away from the sector-wide approach to what we call the program-based planning and budgeting. That's why we now don't have sectors. We have 20 programs across government. So all the sectors belong to these 20 programs. So this has changed, and of course, many things have changed. Even the way we plan and budget, and now even the way we're going to execute the budget. So the reason we did this is that we wanted to ensure that there is a cohesion. Initially, we had a silo mentality in government. Sectors we are planning alone, thinking about themselves, but it's not working. We wanted an integrated approach. For instance, if you're building a hospital, you want somebody who is going to bring power. You want somebody who's going to bring water. You want somebody who's going to bring an ICT facility. You see? So that you have a complete facility. And that's what the purpose of going this program-based planning and budgeting. And now, this is, of course, the legal framework of Parliament is still in sectors, but we hope that in the future, there will be a review so that even the Parliament considering this budget framework paper, they do it using the program-based under programs. So after the process of passing the budget framework paper, and this was done in the spirit of program-based planning and budgeting, we now have what we call a second budget call circular. And that one is by law. You know, Ministry of Finance, we work under the Public Finance Management Act. So it spells out timelines for some of this, and we follow it strictly. Actually, Ministry of Finance is one institution that operates on timelines.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes. So right now, today is the 15th of February. The second budget call circular is out to further guide the budgeting process, the details, so some sort of draft budget that these programs are going to follow. So after that, then we shall go into the policy statements, which have to be in Parliament by 15th March. You know that is also a process. Then sector will have to go and defend this before Parliament, and then we shall have the budget, final budget, estimate around April, submitted to Parliament, debated, passed, and then the reading of the budget in June. So that is a process which has timelines, and we are very you can't break the law. So we are very keen on these timelines. So that's how we work as in terms of the budgeting cycle. Yeah, but going back to the budget, as you have said, the new budget, the priorities that are coming up in the budget for the next financial year. You see, when I talked about the theme, and I told you we are going to proceed, we are going to continue implementing that, because we feel we have not, you can't
fully explain.
Yeah, 1 year is you need to do some strong investment. So the key priorities of government in the next budget, we are going to see, you're going to, of course, peace and security is very paramount. You're going to see a lot of investment in road maintenance. It's one area that we are looking at. Of course, road maintenance, because you've seen we've made thousands of kilometers, but some of them are not well maintained. So now we are putting emphasis on road maintenance as we do other critical investments. We are going to put a lot of emphasis next financial year on revamping the meter gauge railway, which is very critical in terms of reducing the cost of doing business. We are going to also focus alongside that the standard gauge railway. The other area that we are going to focus is electricity, transmission and distribution. And of course, in the area of agriculture, we are going to look at small power irrigation, small scale solar powered irrigation to ensure that there is production across the cycle. The Minister of Water is really on this. We want to ensure that at least people don't suffer drought, at least there is production, because we know agriculture is the mainstay of our economy. We want also to focus on industrial parks, building infrastructure in industrial parks around the country. We are planning that in the medium term we could have all the 25, but how do these look? Because if there is business, if they grow, if we develop these industrial parks, they are going to create jobs, they are going to generate a lot of, to boost the economy. So we are saying this is going to be a priority in the next budget. In addition, of course, we are going to support science and research. Science and research are very critical in this era, and we are keen on supporting institutions such as NARO, which are doing a lot of research. Right now, our scientists are working on the anti-tick vaccine. So you can imagine if this is launched, how it's going to improve that animal sector. So we are going to continue focusing. We want them to produce improved varieties, crop varieties, and other areas. We want to vaccine, now with these diseases which come, we want our science to be equipped. But of course, as we do that, we are going to continue with the full implementation of the parish development model, a MIOGA, and then we are going to continue putting resources in UDB and UDC so that people can really access affordable financing. We hope this is not going to support the private sector to access affordable financing. And as we do this, we're going to really also focus on human capital development. It takes almost the largest portion of the
18% of the budget.
Of the budget, because if you want to develop a country, you have to invest in the people. So things like education, health, water, these are priorities that you have no choice. You have to invest. So under the program-based approach, human capital development has prioritized what should be implemented under health, education, and water and sanitation. So those are some of the priorities that our government is going to focus on in the coming financial. And like I told you, even when the economy has not recovered properly, we are going to prioritize resources. We are going to repurpose the budget to ensure that money goes to where it's much needed, where there is the highest return on investment.
Let's talk about the rise in this budget, especially in terms of the totality. We know we are going to have a bigger budget next year, but when you look into the sub-programs, and like you said, it's a program-based budget kind of paper that we're having right now. But when you look into each of the sectors, most of them have been cut, with the exception of a few like human capital development, where we have education rising but most of them have been cut. And there have been concerns on where the cuts have been made. Because many people, especially when they think of the budget process, they think probably where there's more money is where government is putting more priority. And when you look at tourism, this year, they are looking at an 89.2 billion cut, lower to about 194 billion compared to last year. And this is one of the NDP3 programs that is actually least funded when you look into the budget. And there have been concerns where we have been ranked, especially by, for example, CNN as one of the tourist destinations of the year 2022, and yet we still continue to put less money in this. How is this prioritization working in favor of the comparative advantage we have as Uganda, especially in sectors like tourism?
Oh, thank you, Anthony. It's true that there was a reduction in allocation in some of these areas like tourism. But of course, even as Parliament was debating this, there were some, when they were doing what we call the program implementation action plans, the PIAPs, there are some gaps that were done, and we've been assuring that some of this money is going to be restored in some areas as we do the final budget estimates. So we are very mindful of tourism. Money, but we expect allocative efficiency with the resources that you are going to have. Actually, tourism, right now as I speak, the ministry is spearheading, should I call it a think tank, of how we should revamp our tourism. And the discussions are ongoing with all stakeholders to ensure that we get the best out of the tourism industry. So government is very mindful, and we really prioritize tourism as one of the areas that really contribute so much to the development of the economy. So there are those areas, there are those subventions which had their money cut, including those that are income generating, URSB, those ones which make some money. They do make some money, including the Directorate of Citizenship and Immigration. Their money is going to be restored because they contribute to the economy, and we want them to continue doing what they are doing. So as we do the final budget, some of those issues are going to be rectified. We've taken note of them, and the team at the Ministry of Finance and the National Planning Authority, which spearheaded the development of these PIAPs, Program Impression Action Plans, are looking at this very critically. And when you issue the final budget estimates, you're going to see some changes in the budget.
Yes.
Oh,
interesting. Now, let's get to look into, for example, even the education sector. There's been a new curriculum that was rolled out and started actually being implemented in schools, especially in O-level, where students are now no longer on the knowledge-based, but rather we are looking at creativity, increasing creativity among students, and also getting to reduce the interaction between teachers and students, having more of the students make their own education. But the education sector hasn't also been prioritized in this budget. According to the reports, they have a deficit of 14.3 billion in 2023-2024 to train over 1,000 lower secondary teachers in this, and only 150 secondary school teachers to be retooled. Also, 24 billion is required to print at least 6.05 million copies of the instruction material for Senior 1 and Senior 2 for both public and private schools. Now, we have this new curriculum, which is absolutely amazing. And I have to say, I wish it came earlier. When we were still in school, probably things would be even better. But then the financing. I don't know if it's been financed in other through other programs like infrastructure, or there's any plan to actually put money in this program, because it's much needed as a sector.
Oh, well, these are part of the subventions which are affected. But of course, there is money you cannot cut. You cannot remove money for doing examinations. If it's cut, and some of this money is going to be restored. But even if it's not restored 100%, we are telling the programs to prioritize. That the allocations must be very efficient. So as some money is put back, there might be still gaps. I cannot guarantee you that you are going to get 100% by something going to be done, but this should be prioritized at program level. Should be prioritized because you cannot proceed. This is where we're heading in terms of education. That's the curriculum we're going to implement. So there's no way it cannot have resources. So this part of the subventions which I told you had some issues in terms of issuing, in terms of the budget framework paper when it was issued, but it's going to be rectified. But again, I emphasize that money will never be enough. Money is not going to be enough for everybody. You've been seeing people coming to parliament. Money is never going to be enough. When you're dealing with the economics, it's about
managing scarce
resources. Yeah? So this is a principle that we are going to implement, and everybody should. It's good now that everybody is now part of they're involved in allocating resources. So a priority should be a priority, even at program level. So we hope that this is going to be addressed.
Talking about efficiency of allocation of resources, in 2018 there was a plan to rationalize government ministries, departments and agencies. This hasn't been realized in actual sense. Of course, there have been a couple of, I think a few that have tried to put it on table, but the same policymakers, the legislators who actually brought these ideas to table are the same people actually coming to request for more money in these programs that should be rationalized. I won't give examples, but when you take a look at most of the government ministries, some of them are replicating duties, honestly. And if we have them rationalized, probably people think that would cut the cost of running government. Has there been any effort in this direction, in this current new budget?
Yes, the issue of rationalization cannot be taken away. This is a very deliberate government policy going forward. And of course, if you remember what happened, for instance, the Minister of Energy, things are taking shape. The system, the process might be slow, but because you need to be very cautious. Some of these are established by acts of parliament. Right now, as we speak, the Minister of Public Service is looking at all this and also ensuring that these people move. If you have to rationalize where are people going, what in terms of resources, what does it require, but also in terms of law, what does it mean if they were established by an act of parliament?
Absolutely.
And right now, this is being worked on by the Attorney General, and once that process is complete, it's going to be taken back to Parliament to ensure that this process is formalized. But I can assure you that government is really on this process of rationalization, because one of the ways we've seen that can really bring about the allocative efficiency we are talking about. Yes.
Has there been effort also in the same line with the frugality of government, getting to reduce or cut expenditure? Because many people look at the lifestyle of government officials. Of course, this is not to discredit what they have to receive as their mandate. Of course, they have to be protected. Ministers have to have lead cars and so on. But sometimes people look at government officials and they think they're overspending. They think we are too lavish for our budget. Has there been effort in that direction to cut costs of running government as well?
Yes, Anthony, I can tell you that government is very, very, very keen. That's why you hear people in parliament saying that they don't have money because we are tightening. We want to use the money that we have to do the thing that must be done. We don't have a lot of resources to cover everything, but we believe that we can use the money we have to do what we really must be, what we must do without necessarily going to borrow. So there is a lot of effort in that direction, and by tomorrow or the other day when you read the second budget call circular, you are going to see how government is tightening the spending. There are things that are not going to be done. Of course, some of them are going to get their budgets. Those activities are going to get budgets half, 50%. So there is really effort in tightening and ensuring that there is no wasteful expenditure in government. Yes.
Wow, thank you so much. We're going to take another short break, Mr. Apollo, and when we return, we want to look at financing. You are coming from the Ministry of Finance, and when we look at where government is getting money currently, without public debt rising, yet we're still borrowing more to cover the interests of the already non-concessional loans which we borrowed in the past. What is government doing in this slide? Also, the domestic financing for our budget probably is going to increase in the next financial year from 25 to 28 trillion, covering over 58% of the budget. What does this mean for the taxpayer? I understand when the people hear this, they definitely know, much as government is saying no new taxes, there's going to be a little tightening in the taxation here and there. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking the current state of the economy, and I'm with Mr. Apollo Migundi, who is the head of communications at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. We are taking a very short breather, and when we return with more, and stay tuned for that matter. Stay with us, don't go anywhere.